Welcome to the show that nobody loves.
Hosted by.
Really, who's gonna make me an intro for my channel? So welcome to the show that nobody loves.
Hosted by the one and only.
I don't think you need to be making any
Perfect. Alright, so 4 more examples. Now we have a leading coefficient. It's going to add in an extra step, 2, depending on how you look at it. Okay, but after that, the process remains the same. Okay, we're still going through the same idea of we want to move the constant. We want to get rid of that to the other side so that we have the variables on one side, the constant on the other. We're adding in a step of factoring out the leading coefficient. Then we'll continue back up with the process of using b over 2 squared in order to complete the square, and then we solve for x using our square root property. Okay, so we're adding in that one little step for that second part. Okay, so start by moving the 1 over. 2x squared plus 14x equals 1. Alright, on the left side, we are going to factor out the 2. Now, I want to emphasize something real quick. There's a couple different ways to go through this process of completing the square. They all get you the same result, but there's a little bit of variation. So if you go and watch someone else's YouTube channel, don't do that, like and subscribe mine. They may explain it differently, which is fine. There is a purpose for some of the variations depending on what your goal is. But I want you to trust my madness, okay? I am absolutely crazy, but there's a method to my madness, and I know stuff that comes in the future because I am psychic. And there is a reason why I'm doing it this specific way, okay? There are other ways to do it. It's not a huge difference in how they're done. Some people don't move the 1, okay? Some people factor the 2 out of everything, okay? There's differences in how it's done. I'm doing it the specific way because of stuff that happens later that this method is easier for. Okay? So, trust the madness. Alright? So, when I factor out 2, I have x squared plus what? 7x. Now, I'm going to add in the box now, because I need the box. Now, on the other side, 1 plus, and I got my box. Alright? But, here's the trick. Another thing that we have to pay really, really, really careful attention to. Okay? How do I figure out what goes in this box here? B over 2 squared. What's my B value? 7. It's 7 now. I factored out the 2. My B value is 7 now. 49 over 4. Okay? But look very, very carefully. On this left side of the equation, I've got 49 over 4. It's being multiplied by this 2 that I factored out. So in order for my equation to stay balanced, the 49 over 4 that I add over here also has to be multiplied by 2. Okay? So that's the extra trick that you have to remember. When I factor out the 2 over here, I need to remember to multiply by 2 on the right. So highlight it, star it, point a bunch of arrows to it. Do something to remember that you need to add in that times 2 or times 3, whatever it is that we factor out, because you'll always have those 2 things showing up when we have that leading coefficient. Okay, so that's a major change in the process. If you leave it out, it's not going to be a good result. But once we've done that, everything else is the same. I'm going to simplify. I'm going to use square root property. I'm going to solve for x. So on the left-hand side, I can factor. So 2x is going to be plus or minus. Plus what? 7 over 2. It's always what we get before we square it. B over 2. Squared equals, now we need to simplify the right side. What's 2 times 49 over 4? Simplify it. Okay, add 1. Add one whole, not just add one. Add one whole. 53 over, or not 53 over 2, sorry. 50, I have 49 over 2 plus 1.
Which
Oh.
51 over 2.
Oh, I see.
So this is 49 over 2, right?
that's one whole.
I need to add one whole, which is 2 over 2.
Oh.
Gotta have that common denominator. Okay? Or use your calculator.
Calculator.
Either one. I don't care. You got it. Spent $100 on it. Might as well use it. Okay? Okay, now, I just have to do one more thing before I can apply my square root property. No, that is not the square root property.
Oh, square.
Before I can square root, whatever is being squared has to be by itself.
Oh, divide by 2.
Divide by 2. Now I have that leading coefficient, so I need to divide by 2. Okay? X plus 7 over 2 squared equals 51 over 4. Now I can do my square root property. Square root. Square root. What am I going to have on the left? X plus 7 over 2 equals what? Anything else? Plus and minus. Okay. See, now it's looking back to what we're doing, what we did yesterday. Subtract 7 over 2. Seven over 2 plus or minus root 51 over 2, and they have the same denominator. So there we go. And it starts to look very similar to what we've been doing. The only thing that was different was that part. That was the only part that was different. Everything else was the same. Questions before we move to the second one?
Would that be 7 over 2?
Yes, yes it would. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Good catch, Sean. All right. Step 1. The 3. Step 2. Factor out the 2, which leaves me with what inside the parentheses? Plus the box. What else do I need? What else do I need? Before that, this line isn't done. Square. I need to multiply by 2 because I factored out the 2. Factor out the 2, multiply by 2. Okay? Don't forget it. Now I can factor, or I need to be over 2 squared before I can factor. Okay? So b over 2 squared. What's my b value? 4. So that simplifies to what? 2. And then square it? 4. Now we can factor and simplify. What am I going to have on the left? 2. So I have 2 times x minus 2 squared. On the right side, 5. 2 times 4 is 8, plus negative 3 is 5. Because the 3 was negative. I want the 3 on the other side, makes it negative, so. And square root both sides. I divide it by 2, so that I could get the what's being squared. No, I'm not writing it twice.
No, I know. Like, if you were to do that, it would just be 4x plus 4.
Oh, yeah, that, yeah,
Okay.
because this is a perfect square trinomial, which always factors into the binomial squared.
Okay.
That's the whole point of completing the square, is to get it to factor to the binomial square. Okay? X minus 2 equals what?
Root 5 over 2.
Say that again.
Root 5 over 2.
The 2 is still in the radical.
5 over 2.
Okay, root 5 over root 2. I'll add 2 to both sides. I get 2 plus or minus square root of 5 over square root of 2. Can't leave it like that. What about it? They don't have a common denominator, but that's also not what I'm looking at. I can't leave the radical in the denominator. I have to rationalize it. So what should I do? Multiply by root 2. You need to rationalize that denominator. Multiply by root 2 over root 2. Okay? So, 2 plus or minus, what's the square root of 5 times the square root of 2? Square root of 10. What's the square root of 2 times the square root of 2? Which is 2. Now we're done. If you've got a whole number for the first term, you can leave it as a whole number. You don't need to write it as a fraction to combine it as one fraction. The only time we should combine the fractions is if we have 2 fractions. But leaving the whole number, plus or minus the radical, totally fine. Go ahead and start the third one on your own. Divide, factor it out. Yep.
You go back to the
Yeah, real quick. Take a picture real quick. There you go. Go ahead and try that one. Remember, move your constant first. Factor out your leading coefficient. B over 2 squared to complete the square. Factor. I should have written that step in there. That's factor. Factor. And then solve using square root. Yep. The number. So that's B. So B divided by 2. 4 divided by 2. And then square. We have to multiply by that 3.
No.
Did you get that 3?
No.
No? What did you miss that?
I remember that.
Oh, compared to last. Yeah.
I did the negative 12 instead of
Yeah, you gotta do that b over 2 squared. Once you factor it out, it's not negative 12 anymore. It's whatever the new value is. Alright. Try the next one. I'll leave this up for a second so anyone that needs to copy that can finish, and then I'll go to the next slide. We good? Okay. Alright, give that one a shot. So you're adding 9.
No, I know. I was asking if it's going to make the original.
9 fourths. Yeah. b over 2 squared. So your b value is whatever's attached to the x. So I do factor out the 3. That's your b value. You need the x there. 2 more minutes and I'm going to walk through it. Hold on. All right, move the 8. Factor out your 3. Add your squares. And your 3 times the square. B over 2 squared. B is 3. So when we square it, we get 9 over 4. And 9 over 4. Factor. And simplify. If my memory serves me right, I think it was negative 5 over 4.
Yep.
Okay. Woo, my memory's good. Divide both sides by 3. Now I can square root both sides. Now, we can simplify both of those radicals. Square root of negative 5 is I square root of 5. And you get rid of that negative inside the radical. Square root of negative 1 gives me I. Square root of 12, well, that factors to be 4 and 3. So I get 2 square root of 3. Well, rationalize it in a minute. Actually, let's rationalize it now. Go ahead and rationalize it now. And then we need to multiply top and bottom by the square root of 3. So we end up with I square root of 15 over 6. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is 3 times 2 gives me 6. So x minus 3 halves equals I root 15 plus 6. And then we can go ahead and add the 3 halves to both sides. X is 3 halves plus and minus I root 15 over 6. And now, last but not least, we need a common denominator. Multiply both of those by 3, so we get 9 over 6 plus and minus I root 15 over 6 for our final answer of 9 plus and minus I root 15 over 6. And if you're not having fun yet, I don't know what you find fun.
That was nowhere near
Because
there.
this is absolutely delightful.
How'd you get the negative 1?
The negative 5. Where was we here? So 3 times 9 is 27 over 4. Add that to negative 8. 8 needs a common denominator. So that becomes negative 32 over 4 plus 27 over 4 equals negative 5 over 4. Or plug it into your calculator. Either. Also, when you do plug those in your calculator, if you get a decimal, just remember math, enter. It takes that decimal, pops it right back into a fraction. Okay? So you're going to want to do that because we're going to be dealing with a lot of fractions. Alrighty? Any last minute questions, comments, concerns, queries, or conundrums?
Oh, finally understood.
Yeah.
Oh.
I would imagine it could be in either one. I don't see why it wouldn't. Just the put it in. If it's in the non-calculator section, it would probably be less fractions. Your division would probably work out neater. But again, I don't know for sure because it's been like almost 20. It's been a while. I do want to take it again though.
Oh,
to take it.
Oh, I want to see if I can get a perfect score.
That is.
That is so.
I got a perfect score on a practice test.
So.
Alrighty.